child, where are you?
Hello, everyone. My name is Aria. Welcome to my story lab. Every day, I listen to stories that touch the heart, stories that make people cry.
Today, I want to tell you a story that I can never forget. A story about a little girl. A little girl who disappeared without a trace. The day she went missing, her parents thought they would never see her again. Her mother cried until her eyes became swollen. But what happened that day changed an entire family forever. This is the story of the day a daughter disappeared.
Before everything went wrong, Muna's family lived a simple life. They were not rich. They were not famous. But they loved one another. Muna was different from other children in the village. She was much shorter than children her age. Because of this, many people laughed at her. Some children pointed at her. Some adults whispered behind her back. But her mother always protected her. Every morning, she would tell Muna, "My daughter, never let anyone tell you that you are less than others." Muna would smile. But deep inside, the words of the villagers still hurt her heart. One afternoon, Muna was playing with other children in the village. At first, everything seemed normal, but suddenly one boy pointed at her and started laughing. "Look at her." Another child laughed too. "Why is she so small?" Soon, more children joined in. They laughed, they pointed, they mocked her. Muna tried to smile and pretend she was okay. But inside, her heart was breaking. She did not understand why people treated her differently. She had never hurt anyone. She only wanted friends. Yet every day, she became the village's favorite joke. That evening, Muna ran away from the other children. She sat beneath a large tree at the edge of the village. For a long time, she said nothing. She simply watched the sunset. Then tears slowly rolled down her cheeks. For the first time, Muna began asking herself questions she could not answer. Questions no child should ever have to ask. She wondered why she was different. She wondered why people laughed at her. And deep inside, she started believing something was wrong with her. She had no idea that someone was watching her from a distance. Someone who would soon change everything. As Muna sat beneath the tree, she thought nobody could see her. But a few villagers were watching from a distance. Two women stood nearby whispering to each other, "That poor child. Something is not right." Have you ever seen a child her age look so small? Muna heard every word. She lowered her head. The tears kept falling. She wished she could disappear. She wished people would stop talking about her. But no matter where she went, the whispers always seemed to follow her. And with every cruel word, her heart became heavier. That night, things became even worse. As Muna sat quietly inside the house, she heard her parents arguing again. Her father was angry. The pressure from the villagers was getting to him. Every day, people asked questions. Every day, people stared. Every day, people talked about Muna. For a moment, the house became silent. Then Muna heard words that broke her heart. Her father looked at her mother and said, "Why is our daughter different from everyone else?" The question hung heavily in the room. Muna sat frozen. She wanted to cover her ears, but it was too late. The pain had already entered her heart. The next morning, Muna tried to act as if everything was normal. She picked up her little basket and walked through the village. But the moment she appeared, the whispers started again. A group of children pointed at her. One boy laughed and shouted, "Look, the tiny girl is coming." The others burst into laughter. Muna lowered her head and kept walking. She pretended not to hear them. She pretended not to care. But inside, she felt smaller than ever. Every step she took felt heavier. Every laugh felt like a stone on her heart. And for the first time, Muna began to wonder if she truly belonged in the village at all. That evening, Muna sat quietly near the doorway. She noticed something different about her father. He no longer smiled the way he used to. He no longer played with her. Most days he sat outside alone, lost in thought. Muna wanted to run to him. She wanted him to carry her like he did when she was younger, but she was afraid. Afraid that he might be ashamed of her. Afraid that the villagers had changed how he saw her. As she watched him from a distance, a single tear rolled down her cheek. What hurt the most was not the laughter of strangers. It was the feeling that her own father was slowly pulling away from her. The following day, Muna found a beautiful flower growing near the village path. Immediately, she thought of her father. She carefully picked it and carried it home. When she saw him sitting outside, her face lit up with excitement.
Daddy, look what I found
She
for
stretched
you.
out her tiny hand and offered him the flower. For a moment, her father looked at it. Then he forced a weak smile.
Thank you.
But something was different. He did not pull her close. He did not carry her onto his lap. He did not even look at her for long. Muna slowly lowered her hand. The flower was still beautiful, but somehow her heart no longer felt the same. That night, Muna tried again. She had spent hours drawing a picture. In the drawing was herself, her mother, and her father standing together as a happy family. She walked over to him with a hopeful smile. "Daddy, I made this for you." Her father glanced at the drawing.
It's nice.
Then he looked away. That was all. No smile, no hug, no excitement, just silence. Muna stood there for several seconds, waiting for more, but nothing came. Slowly, she walked back to her corner. She held the drawing tightly against her chest, and for the first time in her life, Muna wondered if her father was ashamed of her. A few days later, Muna's father went to the village market. As he walked past a group of men, he heard them laughing. "Look, there he is, the father of the smallest girl in the village." Another man chuckled. "Maybe she stopped growing because her father talks too much." The group burst into laughter. Muna's father pretended not to hear, but every word pierced his heart. He lowered his head and continued walking. For the first time, he wished he could disappear. The shame was becoming too much to bear, and every day he blamed Muna a little more for it. Later that evening, things became even worse. As Muna's father walked past the village well, he overheard a group of women talking. Poor man, imagine raising a child that everyone laughs at. Another woman shook her head. "If that were my family, I would move away from this village." The women did not know he was standing nearby, but he heard every single word. He stopped walking. His chest felt heavy. His eyes filled with pain. At that moment, he did not feel anger toward the villagers. He felt anger toward his own situation. And sadly, the person who suffered for it was little Muna. The next morning, Muna followed her mother to the market. For the first time in days, she felt happy. She held her mother's hand tightly and smiled as they walked. Between the market stalls, everything seemed peaceful. Then suddenly, she heard laughter. A group of women were staring at her. "Look, there she is, the tiny girl." Another woman laughed. "I don't think she has grown even 1 inch." The women burst into laughter. Muna's smile disappeared immediately. She lowered her head, and once again the pain returned. On their way home, Muna remained quiet. Her mother noticed. "My daughter, what's wrong?" Muna stopped walking. Tears filled her eyes. Then she asked a question that broke her mother's heart. "Mother, will I ever become normal?" For a moment her mother could not speak. She felt her chest tighten. She wanted to say the perfect words, but no words seemed strong enough. So she simply pulled Muna into a hug and held her tightly. That evening, Muna saw her father returning home. For a moment she forgot all her sadness. She dropped everything she was doing and ran toward him. "Daddy." A smile filled her face. She opened her arms, hoping he would carry her like he used to. But her father was exhausted. The laughter from the villagers was still ringing in his ears. Without thinking, he gently stepped aside. "Not now, Muna." The little girl stopped immediately. Her smile disappeared. She slowly lowered her arms. The rejection lasted only a few seconds, but to Muna it felt like a lifetime. The next morning, Muna woke up early. She wanted to help her mother with the chores. Although the bucket was heavy, she managed to fetch water all by herself. Her face was filled with pride. "Mother, look, I did it." Her mother smiled and hugged her. "You did very well, my daughter." Muna's eyes immediately searched for her father. She wanted him to see it too. She wanted him to be proud of her, but her father simply looked away, as if he hadn't seen anything at all. And once again, Muna's little heart became heavy. That evening, Muna gathered all her courage. She slowly walked over and sat beside her father. For a few moments, neither of them spoke. Then Muna quietly asked, "Daddy, did I do something wrong?" Her father froze. The question caught him by surprise. Muna looked down at her feet. "You don't smile at me anymore. You don't carry me anymore. Are you angry with me?" The father's heart broke inside, but he could not find the right words. So he remained silent. And sometimes silence hurts more than any answer. The following day, Muna was walking home alone. As she passed by a group of children, she heard them whispering, "Look, it's her, the shortest girl in the village." The children started laughing. One of them stretched out his arm and mocked the way she walked. Another pointed and laughed even louder. Muna tried to ignore them. She kept walking. She pretended not to hear, but deep inside every word hurt. By the time she reached home, her eyes were already full of tears. And for the first time, Muna began to wonder if she would ever be accepted. That night, Muna sat quietly beside her mother. She had barely spoken since returning home. Her mother noticed the sadness in her eyes. "My daughter, what is troubling you?" Muna remained silent for a moment. Then she looked up. Tears slowly rolled down her cheeks. "Mother, what if I disappear?" Her mother immediately froze. Muna continued softly, "If I disappear, will people stop laughing at Daddy?" The room became silent. Her mother's heart shattered. She could not believe what she had just heard. The little girl had carried so much pain that she now believed she was the problem, and nothing hurt a mother more than hearing her child say those words. Before Muna could say another word, her mother pulled her into a tight embrace. Tears streamed down her face. "Never say that again. Do you hear me?" Muna looked surprised. Her mother held her even tighter. "You are not a mistake. You are not a burden. You are my daughter, and I will love you for the rest of my life." Muna began to cry too. For the first time in many days, she felt safe. But outside the house, the cruel words of the villagers still echoed through the village, and those words were slowly destroying their family. The next day, Muna's father was returning from the market. As he walked past a group of men sitting under a tree, he heard them laughing. "There he goes, the father of the shortest girl in the village." The men laughed loudly. Muna's father lowered his head and kept walking. But then one of the men said something that made him stop. "If I were him, I would have left this village long ago." Another man shook his head. "Who knows? Maybe the girl isn't even his daughter." The group burst into laughter. Muna's father's hands tightened into fists. His face turned pale. For the rest of the journey home, those words echoed inside his mind. Maybe she isn't even his daughter. The thought refused to leave him. That night, the tension inside the house became unbearable. Muna's father could no longer keep his feelings to himself. "I am tired of this life,"
he shouted.
Muna's mother stared at him in shock. "Tired of what?"
she asked.
"Tired of the laughter, tired of the whispers, tired of everyone talking about our family." His voice trembled with anger. Muna's mother stepped closer. "She is your daughter. She needs your love now more than ever." But the father shook his head. "You don't understand. Everywhere I go, people laugh at me. Everywhere I go, they call me the father of the shortest girl in the village." The room became silent. Then he said something that shattered hearts. "Sometimes, I wish things were different." Outside the doorway, Muna stood frozen. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She had heard every word, and for the first time, she truly believed that her father was ashamed of her. That night, Muna could not sleep. The words she had heard kept repeating in her mind. She quietly left the house and sat beneath the old tree. The village was silent. Only the stars watched her cry. Muna looked up at the sky. "God, why am I different? Why does everyone laugh at me?" More tears rolled down her cheeks. Then she whispered something that broke her own heart. "If I was taller, maybe Daddy would love me again." She hugged her knees tightly. For the first time, Muna felt completely alone. The next morning, Muna woke up with a small plan. She spent hours making something special for her father, a beautiful little flower crown. As she worked, she smiled. Maybe today would be different. Maybe today her father would smile again. Excitedly, she ran to him. Daddy, I made this for you. The father looked at the gift. For a brief moment, his eyes softened. Then the laughter, the whispers, the shame. Without meaning to, he simply nodded. Thank you. Nothing more. No smile. No hug. No warmth. Muna's smile slowly faded. And in that moment, the last piece of hope inside her heart began to disappear. The next morning, Muna's mother woke up early as usual. She walked into Muna's room to wake her. But something felt strange. The bed was empty. At first she smiled. She must be outside already. Muna often woke up early, so her mother wasn't worried. Not yet. She walked outside and looked around the compound, but Muna was nowhere to be seen. The smile slowly disappeared from her face, and a feeling of fear began to grow inside her heart. Minutes passed, then more minutes. Still no sign of Muna. Her mother searched behind the house. She checked the cooking area. She checked the water well. Nothing. Muna, she called. No answer. Muna. Still nothing. Now her hands were shaking. Something was wrong. Very wrong. And deep inside, she feared the unthinkable. Muna's mother could not keep searching alone. Terrified, she ran to find her husband. Her heart was pounding. Tears filled her eyes. When she finally reached him, she could barely speak. Muna is gone. The father froze. What do you mean, gone? I can't find her anywhere. At first, he thought it was a misunderstanding. Maybe she was playing with friends. Maybe she had gone to fetch water. But when he saw the fear in his wife's eyes, his own heart began to race. Something was terribly wrong. Within minutes, the entire village knew that Muna was missing. The same villagers who had laughed at her, the same villagers who had whispered behind her back, now they joined the search. People spread out in every direction. Some searched near the river, others searched near the market. Others checked the village paths. Muna. Muna. Her name echoed through the village. For the first time in a very long time, Muna's father forgot about the laughter. He forgot about the insults. He forgot about what people thought. All he wanted was his daughter back. And as the hours passed, fear slowly began to replace hope. As the search continued, Muna's father began to feel something he had not felt before. Guilt. Every step reminded him of the words he had spoken. Every path reminded him of the times he had pushed her away. What if he never saw her again? What if the last thing she remembered was his coldness? The thought made his heart ache. For the first time, he stopped worrying about what the villagers thought. He stopped worrying about the laughter. He only wanted one thing: to hold his daughter again. As the sun began to set, hope was fading. Then an elderly woman stepped forward. I think I saw a little girl this morning. Everyone turned toward her. The father rushed closer.
Where?
The old woman pointed toward the edge of the village. Near the old tree, the mother's eyes widened. The father's heart began to pound. Without wasting another second, they started running. For the first time that day, they had a clue, and they prayed it was not too late. When they arrived at the old tree, they saw her. Little Moina was sitting alone beneath the branches. Her knees were pulled tightly against her chest. Tears covered her face. She didn't know her parents were nearby. She was talking softly to herself. God, why did you make me different? Her voice trembled. I tried to be good. I tried to make Daddy happy. More tears rolled down her cheeks. But everybody laughs at me. She lowered her head. Then she whispered something that shattered hearts. I think Daddy would be happier if I wasn't here. The villagers stood frozen. Several people began to cry. Even the old woman wiped tears from her eyes. The moment Muna's father heard those words, he could not hold back anymore.
Muna, he cried.
Muna looked up in shock. Before she could react, her father ran toward her. Tears streamed down his face. For the first time in many days, he dropped to his knees and wrapped his arms around her. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Muna froze. She had waited so long to hear those words. Her mother rushed forward and hugged them both. The father held his daughter tightly, as if he never wanted to let her go again. And in that moment, he realized something important. His daughter was never the problem. His fear of what people thought was the real problem. For several moments, nobody spoke. Only the sound of crying could be heard. Then Muna looked into her father's eyes. Her voice was small, almost a whisper. "Daddy?" Her father looked at her. Muna swallowed hard. Then she asked the question that had been living in her heart for so long. "Daddy, are you ashamed of me?" The father's face immediately crumbled. Tears rolled down his cheeks. He could not believe his little girl had been carrying such pain. The villagers lowered their heads. Even they felt ashamed, because they knew they had helped put that question inside her heart. "No, Muna." The father shook his head as tears streamed down his face. "I am not ashamed of you." He pulled her closer. "I was wrong. I allowed people's words to change my heart. I forgot how special you are." Muna burst into tears. The father held her tightly. "Listen to me. You are my daughter, and I will always love you, no matter what anyone says." The mother joined the embrace. For the first time in a long time, the family felt whole again. And as the sun slowly disappeared behind the trees, something else disappeared too. The pain that had been tearing them apart. As the family stood together, the villagers slowly stepped forward. For the first time, nobody was laughing. Nobody was whispering. Nobody was pointing. Instead, they looked ashamed. An elderly woman wiped tears from her eyes. "My child, please forgive us." Another villager lowered his head. "We judged you without knowing your pain." Even the children who had mocked Muna stood silently. Muna looked around. For the first time, she saw kindness in their eyes, and for the first time, the village understood that words can hurt more deeply than they ever imagined. That day changed everything. Muna learned that she was never the problem. Her father learned that a parent's love should never depend on the opinions of others. And the villagers learned that being different is not something to be ashamed of. As they walked home together, Muna held her parents' hands tightly. For the first time in many days, she smiled, a real smile, and although she was still the shortest girl in the village, she no longer felt small inside, because she finally knew something important. She was loved, just the way she was.
Thank you for listening to today's story. Sometimes the words we speak can leave scars we cannot see. Let us remember to show kindness, especially to those who are different from us. My name is Arya, and I'll see you in another story.